right, it's 9 o'clock on this Thursday night. That means it's time for the live Zone Primetime. I'm producer Chris. Tony P enjoying some time off. He is still down in Florida. He will be back on Monday. Thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight, whether you're watching on Fox Local or you're watching on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. We appreciate it very, very much. And just a reminder, if you're not familiar with the show, this show is all about you. You can join us live at any point. All you got to do is scan that QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can join in, talk about any of the stories we are talking about tonight as well. But first up tonight, we have to talk about the weather. It's what we've been talking about all week long, and it's because we got some major weather whiplash today. We experienced about 3 seasons in 24 hours, from summer to spring to straight up winter. You were taking a look at some of the video that we shot earlier today from our Fox 5 sky cams. The snow falling all across the region. You see Frederick, Maryland. You see Rockville, Maryland. And you see the White House all covered in white. And in case you need a reminder, yesterday was in the 80s. Mike Thomas says that we also made some history in the process. Mike, honest to God, have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, not in terms of, not here. You have certainly seen it, and this, what we went through today, not so uncommon if you live in the Plains states or out near the Rocky Mountains, where extreme temperature change is much more common than what we deal with here. So we made a little history. I guess you should say we tied a little history today. The biggest temperature drop in a 24-hour period that DC has had on record, we tied it. 51-degree difference in 24 hours, I think between 5 p.m. yesterday and 5 p.m. 3 p.m., sorry. 3 p.m. yesterday and 3 p.m. today, a 51-degree difference. And we last did that in January of 1934. So when we talk about these being sort of like,
it's been a hot minute,
once-in-a-lifetime type events there, unless you're in the Century Club, then maybe there's a twice-in-a-lifetime type event. But an extreme drop that we just don't see all that often. And you're right, I'm sure we could have mixed in a little fall and said all 4 seasons in 24 hours at some point. But I mean, and this is the craziest thing to me is, in 5 years, I'm going to look back, if I ever, because I love going through data, and I'm going to go back on this day and be like, oh my God, we were 78 degrees today, and we had measurable snowfall. So something that we just don't.
Today?
These are today's high temperatures. Today's high temperature.
I thought I went to the wrong thing.
Nope, you did not. You went to the right thing. These are in the books as today's high temperature here in DC. What is today? The Thursday, March 12th. High temperature, 78 degrees. It was our temperature at midnight last night. That's why they always do, day. When we're in standard time, it's 1 a.m. to 1 a.m. When we're in daylight savings time, it is midnight to midnight. And that was the temperature that we had here at midnight in Washington, 78 degrees. So very warm start, and folks were waking up this morning. Temperatures were still in the 60s in a lot of spots, and then they just plummeted. As that rain moved in, it quickly changed over the snow. It was one of the most dramatic rain to snow events that I've ever seen. And also from today are these snowfall totals. So 78-degree day officially, but Crofton picked up 1.3, Elkridge 1.4, only 1.3. Vienna, Virginia 1.7, Woodbridge 1.6. Now, a lot of what we would call the more official observations were less than an inch in D.C. Any National Weather Service observation had less than an inch of snow. And you can kind of see that. The numbers don't really match up with the airports, where D.C. itself 0.1 inches, Dulles 0.6. BWI got a trace, even though locations less than a mile from where BWI is, got over an inch. And there is a difference that you have to watch out for. A lot of those totals I just showed you are what we call viewer reports, where folks run outside, they take the measuring stick, they throw it down in the yard and say, well, we got an inch of snow. With a snow like today, it tends to be wet and kind of hangs on top of the grass. So what I'm suspicious of a lot of times when I see numbers over an inch on a day like today is that ruler's going below the snow layer and going down to the ground. So it looks like there's more snow on top of what you actually got. So I think there was some of that going on in parts of Virginia. Not that some didn't get close to an inch of snow. You see Dulles, 0.6 inches. So for March, not bad. And, folks asking me how rare is this? March snows are not rare. We had snow on this date 4 years ago. That was measurable. What is rare is how we did this snow. We have never, and I went back as far back as I could go. We got records back to the 1800s. I have not found a single case where we had temperatures temperatures in the 80s the day before a measurable snowfall event here in D.C. So that was quite the 24-hour swing. We're getting into, I guess, what you can say is the calmer part of this, as that system now moves away. Clearing out there. I was just outside a moment ago. I could see some stars popping out across the D.C. region. Pretty look, but certainly a chilly one as temperatures falling back into the 20s. And we do have wind advisories, not here in D.C., but our neighbors in the mountains north and west under wind advisories through the day tomorrow pretty much. And that tells you when it's that close, even here in D.C. It's going to be a relatively gusty day tomorrow. We should see a nice rebound in temperatures, though. I mean, we'll get back up into the low to mid-50s, which is where we should be this time of year. Average high in D.C., 55 degrees for the middle of March. Just the winds will make it feel a little cooler than that. So plan on dressing warm tomorrow, but no more snow coming down tomorrow afternoon. And same deal with the weekend, which I believe this is your final weekend of winter. Officially. Next Friday, we bring in springtime here in D.C. So not bad there. Saturday's good day, 57 degrees. Few more clouds on Sunday. Don't let the shower scare you too much. Sunday doesn't look overly wet. It looks like maybe late in the day or even the later evening hours, we're going to have a couple of showers coming across. But it doesn't look all that wet. And 61 degrees isn't bad at all as we get another little spring feel coming in for Sunday and Monday. Monday's high could be in the 70s. Unfortunately, just like what we just did, we don't see a snow threat with this one, at least not at this moment, but we do snap back to winter kind of next Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day. You know, a lot of folks like getting out on that holiday might need the winter clothes for that one. And by Wednesday, temperatures still hanging out in the 40s for the most part. So back to a little bit of a winter feel. I don't think it's going to be long-lived or anything like that, but these March swings are quite common here. And when we do that snap from a spring-like feel on Monday to a winter-like feel on Tuesday, in between, we could do another round of severe weather here in Washington. So we'll have to stay on guard for the threat for more damaging winds, just like we had yesterday. Just had a question from Tisha Lewis on if any of those tornadoes were confirmed from yesterday. We had 3 tornado warnings in the D.C. region. National Weather Service went out today. They surveyed 2 of those sites. They have said that they're going to go through the data that they surveyed tonight and likely make an announcement tomorrow on whether or not they have found any tornadic damage or if it was all what we call just straight line wind damage. But there was certainly some damage up in Montgomery County, Howard County, and then up towards Frederick and Carroll counties as well. There's the 7 day, and you can see the swings on it. 60s by the end of the weekend, 70s to start next week. We're dive down to the 40s on Tuesday. Shouldn't be that dramatic of a temperature drop compared to what we just did, but certainly is going to be cold for the middle part of next week. Good news is I do think we're rebounding decently quickly, and by the first official weekend of spring, next weekend, we're probably snapping right back to spring-like conditions.
A little chilly on St. Patrick's Day, but people will have that green beer to help keep them warm. Mike, let me ask you
Are we going to have that here at the station?
I mean, I'm not going to be here, but I imagine...
These are the days where are you celebrating? Is that why you're off?
Yeah, exactly. These are the days, and I'll give a shout out that I miss Matt Gaffney with that Bailey's cake. I don't know if you remember that he used to bring in on St. Patrick's Day.
He would always have the dancing crew come in.
He would always have the dancing crew
on
as
St.
well.
Patrick's Day.
Mike, we just saw the cherry blossoms hit stage 1, that green bud phase, and that was after we had a couple warm days, and then we went right back to winter snow today. Is that going to slow things down, maybe?
The National Park Service came out today and said they plan on adjusting their dates as of this moment. And stage 1, even if they do come out, they're still really well protected. Okay. So cold's not going to impact them as much as if we were in some of the later stages. Okay. We'll see what the cold next week does. I think that's kind of more vital to whether or not that'll slow anything down.
All right.
Or not. So
we'll check an eye on that. Mike, thanks so much for joining us and rolling with these weather punches because it's been weird.
March is a fun month.
It's a fun month.
It really swings.
Living
it swings back and forth. But we are getting towards spring. These swings only happen because we're getting towards springtime. So we're going to make it, people. Hang in there.
So just hang in there a little while longer. Mike Thomas, thank you so much. All right, let's get into some of the other headlines we've been following here at Fox 5 this afternoon and will be following tonight as well. First up, a suspected terror attack at Old Dominion University that killed 1 person and injured 2 others. The shooter is a man with ties to Northern Virginia. The FBI identified the gunman as Mohammed Jallah of Sterling. He previously pleaded guilty to trying to provide material support to ISIS and served about 11 years in prison before his release in December of 2024. Officials say today's shooting happened just before 11 this morning inside Constant Hall on campus where ROTC members were gathered. Tonight, 2 victims remain in the hospital in stable condition. The FBI director, Kash Patel, says the shooting is being investigated as an act of terrorism. The university says the area in and around Constant Hall will remain closed for now as it works to provide support for students and staff members. Meantime, at the suspect's last known address in Sterling, neighbors say he's rarely been spotted since his 2016 arrest. A handwritten sign taped to the front door that we saw, our Fox 5 camera saw, former home, it reads, "We do not wish to speak to the press." Fox 5 Shamari Stone, though, will have more tonight from Sterling coming up at 10 and 11. Meanwhile, local police stepping up patrols at houses of worship after an attack on a Michigan synagogue. An armed man was killed by security after ramming his car into the Temple Israel synagogue in a Detroit suburb. His truck caught fire, burning part of the building. No one else was hurt. FBI agents still on scene, and just minutes ago, we learned more details about that gunman. The armed man who rammed his vehicle into one of the nation's largest Reform synagogues has been identified as 41-year-old Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, a naturalized citizen born in Lebanon. He came to the U.S. in 2011 on an IR-1 immigrant visa as the spouse of a U.S. citizen and was granted U.S. citizenship in 2016. According to the Department of Homeland Security, federal investigators have called the crime an act of violence targeting the Jewish community. We'll have more on that story coming up at 10 and 11 as well. Back here at home, a scary scene on the George W. Parkway. Some major traffic closures after a tree fell, hitting and killing a driver. U.S. Park Police say only one car was involved and only one occupant was in that car. They were pronounced dead on the scene. They were driving southbound on the GW Parkway near Donaldson Run. No other cars were damaged in the crash. All traffic north and southbound was closed for nearly 7 hours between Route 123 and Spout Run. Those roads reopened around 2 p.m. this afternoon. This is the second time a tree has fallen, killing a driver in less than May. You may remember back in May, less than a year, I should say. Back in May, a tree fell during a thunderstorm, killing a 61-year-old woman as her car was hit. The name of the driver today has not yet been released. Let's move to Montgomery County now, and I want you to take a look at these pictures. A car flying through a dog aquatic center only to be stopped by a pool. You see those images right there. It happened on Travilla Road in Potomac just after 5 o'clock tonight. Montgomery County police are calling it an accident. Fortunately, no one was injured. Fox 5's Julie Donaldson will have more on this story coming up at 10 and 11. Overseas, the war with Iran creating the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market, according to the International Energy Agency. The price of a barrel climbing back to $100 today, while globally stocks tumbled in response. In his first public statement, Iran's new leader, the son of the late Ayatollah Khamenei, says Iran should continue using attacks on oil infrastructure, using the critical Strait of Hormuz as leverage. President Trump says the U.S. will release 172 million barrels of oil from the nation's reserve as part of a global effort to stabilize oil prices. Fox 5's Josh Rosenthal will have more on the rising gas prices here at home. That's coming up at 10 and 11 as well, right here on Fox Local. Tony P. taking the night off, so I had to do the rundown, some of the stories we're following here on this Thursday night in his absence. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, though, we are heading out to Hollywood, and we're counting down to the Oscars, the Academy Awards Sunday night. We're going to check in with Fox's Ashley Dvorkin to talk some of the major categories, who she thinks may take home the Oscar statues. That's coming up next. In the meantime, we're going to leave you with a live picture from our Fox 5 Skycam at National Harbor, the Capitol Wheel, all lit up in purple on what ended up being a pretty pleasant end to a winter-like day. You're watching the Fox 5 Live Zone Primetime. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hey, Ashley, it's Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Chris. How are
Hi.
you?
All right. We'll come back. I was going to play a little clip of the trailer that they did for the Oscars, and then we'll bring you into the conversation.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
generations, the Oscars have celebrated the movies and moments that echo the entirety of the human experience. The exhilaration of true love. The fear of the unknown. The thrill of adventure. The pain of heartbreak. And the joy of laughter.
I'm your host, Conan O'Brien.
I had a blast! Good night! Yeah! What a performance! Amazing! Yes! Roll it again!
That's the 5th time, Mr. O'Brien.
I said again!
All right, the wait is almost over. This Sunday is Oscar night, which means you still have a few days to binge some of those nominated movies if you have all of the different streaming apps. But ahead of Hollywood's biggest night, we're turning to our Hollywood insider to break down what to expect in some of the major categories. We're talking about Fox's Ashley Dvorkin, who joins us now live from Hollywood. Ashley, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone Primetime. How are things out there in Hollywood?
Hi, Chris. Yes, I'm so excited to be here. And listen, award season, it's been a long award season, and it's all led up to this. So things are very exciting here in Hollywood as we're all making our predictions for the major categories, for all the categories, for what we can expect from Conan, which that trailer shows, I think, what we can expect. So very exciting. Can't wait for Sunday.
You mentioned it's been a long road to the Oscars, and you have been there for all of it. What have you kind of picked up? Are certain things trending better than others? What have the previous award shows kind of told you about what we can expect from the Oscars?
Yes, so this year kicked off with the Critics' Choice Awards, and I was there attending as a member, and then I've been on the red carpets, talking to the performers, to the actors, from the Golden Globes to the Actor Awards. And what I find so interesting is obviously we're celebrating these movies. They're talking about highlights of making these movies. And then we start to make our predictions, right? So sometimes it comes down to math. And you're like, okay, well, they won Critics' Choice, Globe, BAFTA, this, that. And that's how we are making a lot of our choices. But then you also have certain films pick up momentum as it gets closer to the Oscars. And you think, wait, we could have a surprise. And then maybe there's a surprise win at one of the shows. And then you change one of your picks, and that's what I've done. So it's been really fun to get to talk about these movies for such a long time, and now I just can't wait to see who goes home with the gold.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned about the momentum. Sometimes we have these sort of scandals that no one saw coming. Mr. Timothy Chalamet, I'm looking at you. We'll get into that. We'll break down some of the big winners in a second. But when it comes to Conan hosting for the second year in a row, is there anything you're like most looking forward to, you're most excited about, presenters, performers, anything like that?
Yes, so Conan, I think he runs a very smooth show, a fun show. I think it's all in good, fun jokes. I think he doesn't get too political. He doesn't usually do too much roasting. He knows everyone's there to have a good time. He gives everyone like a moment to shine with these awards. And also I think he rolls with it really well. So he has talked about how they can prepare and prepare and prepare. And then it's just, you never know what's going to happen on show night. And he's someone who can very much improv. I also love that you hear that these hosts test out their material at comedy clubs and that he's been testing out the monologues. So he's had some practice with that too. So I can't wait for that. I think that there's also going to be, well, it's obviously from the presenters to the performers, they're going to be original song nominees performing. So you have K-pop Demon Hunters Golden, of course. I Lied to You from Sinners. So I'm very much looking forward to those performances. And then as far as some of the presenters, those nominated, in addition to Nicole Kidman, Jimmy Kimmel, Pedro Pascal, Bill and Louis Pullman, we have Sigourney Weaver, the list goes on and on, Robert Downey Jr., Demi Moore, and Matt Berry of What We Do in the Shadows has been announced as the Oscars announcer.
Oh,
I'm actually excited
that.
about that. I love that show. I love him. I think it's going to be great.
I'm pretty excited about that as well. All right, let's get down to business. We'll go through the top categories, the nominees, and who you think could walk away the big winner. So let's start with the Best Actress race.
Okay. So Best Actress, I love that we're starting with this one because this is our all-season sweep. So here we have, there we go. We got Emma Stone, Jessie Buckley, Kate Hudson, Rose Byrne, and Renata Reinsve of Sentimental Value. So listen, all fantastic performances, but it has been Jessie Buckley winning all the way, all award season. She's going to take home the gold on Oscars night, I'm sure. And her speeches have been so moving. I can't wait to see what she has saved for her Oscar acceptance speech, because I'm pretty sure she knows that she's going to be delivering that on Sunday night.
And I 100% agree with you, regardless of her feelings about cats, which I'm not sure if you saw that resurfaced interview. As a cat dad, that struck me deep and to my core. Now, two things about this category that stand out to me. One, Rose Byrne, if I had legs, I'd kick you. Definitely a change of pace for her. Most people associate her with more of her comedic roles with Seth Rogen, Between Neighbors or Platonic on Apple TV+. But the host is also in that movie. In case people out there don't know, Conan O'Brien made kind of his dramatic debut in that movie as well. So, you know, I could picture him trying to give a little nudge to some of those Oscar voters.
Yes, well, I'm sure he's going to mention it in the monologue. I would be so surprised if he doesn't make a comment about how he is in one of these movies that's being recognized. I'm sure he'll have a moment with Rose.
The other thing is that I never, ever, ever, when it comes to Emma Stone teaming up with Yorgos from Bugonia and basically every other movie she's done over the last 5 years and has won Oscars for, you know, when I see that combo together, you know, I feel like Oscar voters are just quick to be like,
Yeah. Listen, it was definitely an expected nomination for sure. But then you look at this category and it's just Jessie Buckley throughout the entire award season has led the way. So
yeah,
we can expect that. But again, Begonia, Emma Stone, it was a fantastic movie. So we'll see what they work on next, right?
Yeah,
for the next Oscar-nominated film
the
together.
next Oscar-nominated film. All right, let's move on to Best Actor now.
Okay. So, Best Actor, we have Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another, Ethan Hawke, Blue Moon, Timothée Chalamet, Marty Supreme, and Wagner Moura, The Secret Agent. So let me go back to something you mentioned earlier. Now, Timothy's comments about opera and ballet, yes, have made a lot of news. However, that happened after Oscar voting had already closed. So that is not going to affect him here. However, I am not predicting that he is going to win this category. Anyway, I am going with Michael B. Jordan of Sinners, especially after he won the actor award at the last show. I feel like going into the Oscars with that, his nomination for these 2 roles in this film, 2.5 really, and I think that Michael B. Jordan is going to take it. What do you think, Chris?
I agree with you 100%, and I don't think it hurt his chances either. There was that interview with one of his co-stars on Jennifer Hudson where she really kind of spelled out some of the acting choices that he made to really separate smoke from stack, whether it was wearing one pair of shoes that were too big for one, wearing one pair of shoes that were too small for the other. So I really think that just kind of solidified how kind of incredible it was that he played these 2 different characters so well, even as the same person. Look, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's one of those not only fan favorites, but he's one of those Oscar perennials. He was the Oscar perennial loser for a long time. He's got his Oscar. I know that this controversy with opera and ballet for Timothée Chalamet happened after Oscar voting had ended, but he's one of those people, he had that earlier interview where he talked about how he had been putting out some Oscar-worthy work for his whole career, basically. And I don't know, I feel like that rubbed Oscar voters the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't just this latest comment. It's been sort of his campaigning and things that he chooses to say. But look, Timothée Chalamet is a great actor. He's going to do more work that will be recognized. And, and I'm sure that you can probably take from this experience for the next time around and more interviews going forward for the next time. But I just don't see it at this award show going to him.
Do you worry at all that the two, Michael B. Jordan and Timothée Chalamet, could sort of split the vote and then like a Wagner Moura could slip in there for the secret agent?
Very interesting you said that because that is who I think would be the surprise win if it happens. I do think with the international vote, I do think that with the film being so well recognized and also being in Best Picture, it has a very good chance, The Secret Agent. So if it is not Michael B. Jordan or Timothée Chalamet, absolutely look out for Wagner Moura.
All right. Let's move on. We'll talk about Best Supporting Actress nominees now.
Okay, Best Supporting Actress. So, One Battle After Another, Tiana Taylor, Wunmi Musaku of Sinners, Inga Ibsdottir Lilius of Sentimental Value, Amy Madigan of Weapons, and Elle Fanning of Sentimental Value. So, this one I do think is going to horror movie star Amy Madigan for Weapons. Also, after she took the award for the Actors Awards, but it just seems she's a veteran in the industry. I think that it's also a very standout performance, as they all are. But if Aunt Gladys takes home an Oscar, I mean, that is a great feat for this horror movie. And it's the only nomination on behalf of the movie. So that is my prediction for this one. I spoke with her at the Actor Awards red carpet, and she said that she knew she could do this role when she saw it on paper, but she did not expect the amount of love for Aunt Gladys.
I mean, it's one of the... Look, horror movies, especially when there's an iconic character as hers was, with people dressing up like her. When was, I mean, not to put you on the spot, but like, when was the last time like a horror? I mean, was it Sir Anthony Hopkins with Hannibal Lecter? I mean, that was kind of a horror movie.
Right, but you also had recognition with The Substance with Demi Moore, so that made it through. And I feel like more and more we're seeing horror movies. And look, horror movies are always about so much more than just a horror movie. Look at Sinners. Sinners is a supernatural vampire saga, but it's so much more than that. And so I feel like we're going to see more. I'm a huge horror movie fan. I love genre films, and I love that they are getting in more and more. So, and also villainous characters do well in this category too. So at the Oscars in some of the supporting categories. So we have that.
Heath Ledger's Joker.
However, the Joker, exactly. But what I will say, if it's not Amy, I think it's going to be Wunmi. Okay. I really do. Yeah, I think that this category is down to those two.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Sinners set records with its number of nominations. Let's move from Best Supporting Actress to Best Supporting Actor now.
Okay. Sinners, Delroy Lindo, Jacob Elordi of Frankenstein, Stellan Skarsgård, Sentimental Value, Benicio del Toro, and Sean Penn from One Battle After Another. So for this one, I know that you have to go, if you go with the numbers, you go with the math, you go with who has won up to this point. Sean Penn is very highly predicted to be the winner of this category, but I would say could be Delroy or Stellan with a career win. So we could see a surprise in this category, or Sean Penn could take home his third Oscar.
Third? Oh, wow. I didn't realize.
Yes.
That would be a third for him. Look, and
he's won
again,
pretty much all the awards, yeah.
I know that it's never supposed to be this way, but I think it would be naive for people to say, like you said, the career Oscar, sometimes people try to make up for the fact that they got it wrong before. And in that case, Delroy Lindo probably deserved an Oscar nomination, if not an Oscar, for The Five Bloods. So I wasn't sure whether he would be like a sentimental favorite for that reason. But like you said, Stellan Skarsgård, another one that's just been turning in quality work for years and years now.
Yeah, and it could be that could be a reason. I mean, look, it's the performances themselves, but when all the performances are so strong, sometimes that career recognition does factor in.
All right, let's move on to Best Director now.
All right. So we've got Chloe Zhao of Hamnet. We have Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value, Paul Thomas Anderson, One Battle After Another, Ryan Coogler for Sinners, and Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme. So this one, we'll go back to the math again. We'll just go back to who has won. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson up to this point, DGA, BAFTA, Globes, Critics' Choice. He's won so much leading up to this point that it would be hard to say it is not going to be Paul Thomas Anderson. I think it could be Ryan Coogler if it is not. But I do think this award, and as we were talking about career awards, this one could go to Paul Thomas Anderson to finally give him that directing Oscar.
This could also be, I mean, do you think in terms of who wins the most Oscars, do you think it could, numbers-wise alone, Sinners and One Battle After Another, are they kind of going back and forth for who could walk away the biggest winners?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I do think that between the two of them, look, Sinners is going in with 16 nominations. It already won. It set a record. It made history. It is going into this show with the most nominations ever. So we have Sinners with that amount. Now, how many wins they take, what we've been talking about, it seems like it might be between Sinners and One Battle, who walks away with the most total.
All right, let's get into the big one now. We're talking about Best Picture, and of course there are the most number of nominees in this category.
There are 10. And so, as we said, it really is very much coming down to One Battle After Another and Sinners. But let's give everyone their shout out for being Oscar nominees for Best Picture. So Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. So it is coming down to those two. And I do think that even though One Battle After Another has been very much predicted and given the precursor awards, it may likely win, I'm going to say Sinners. I am actually going to, and I know it's very rare to split Best Picture and Best Director because those two have gone to the same movie 70 times out of the last 97 Academy Awards. But you know what? Let's make it exciting. I think they're going to split it. I think director's going to Paul Thomas Anderson, and I'm going to say Sinners for Best Picture.
All right, I am looking for it. I can't wait to check this one out and just see everything that it has to offer. And not to end on a down note in any way, shape, or form, but I'm also very excited to kind of see the tribute that they do for Rob Reiner. Obviously, he was close with everyone in Hollywood, including the host Conan O'Brien. So I'm just kind of excited to see, not excited, but you know, it'll be moving for sure.
Yes, those are expected to be very powerful moments. The tributes, what they have to say as they remember these legends of the business of entertainment. Yes.
All right, Ashley Dvorkin, thanks so much for breaking it down, lending us your expertise, and of course, I imagine we can expect a full recap coming up on Monday on all Fox stations.
Absolutely. Yes, look for it. We'll see if I got it right.
All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Ashley, thank you so much. Have a great weekend and a great night.
You too.
All right. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to leave you with this live picture from our Fox 5 Skycam. Frederick, Maryland right now, the canal all lit up. When we come back, we are going to go from movies to music because I got a chance to sit down with the bassist from the Avett Brothers. If you're not familiar, they're a phenomenal band, one of my favorites, but the bassist from the band, not just a rock star, he is also an author and a historian. And I had a chance to talk to him all about his new book, all about America's founding son, John Quincy Adams. That's coming up next.
There ain't nobody here who can cause me pain or raise my fear, 'cause I got only love to share. If you're looking for truth and proof, you'll find it there. If you're looking for truth and proof, you'll find it there. If you're looking for truth and proof, you'll find it. there's so much to have and hold. Under the curly sky, I'm finally learning why it matters for me and you to say it and mean it too. For life and its loveliness and all of its ugliness.
So that's part of the music video for the song No Hard Feelings by the Avett Brothers. And they are a band of many talents because in addition to hit albums and a Broadway show, one of them is also a historian and author. We are talking about bassist Bob Crawford. You see him right there on the left. His new book, America's Founding Son, John Quincy Adams, From President to Political Maverick, is out now. And this weekend, his book tour stops right here in Washington, D.C. First, though, he stopped by the Live Zone Primetime to talk all about the book, music, politics, and more. Take a look. And I have to start by saying, when I first learned about this, I was a little surprised, this project. But then again, in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have been, since you were also the band that did an album and a Broadway musical based on the sinking of a yacht in 1880.
Right. Yeah. Well, the events or the projects aren't connected, but you wait till you guys see what we have coming for you next.
Oh,
I've
okay,
only
well-
teased on that, but the creativity. There are many different canvases on which to create.
I love that. I love that so much. But let's start off with your passion for history. Have you always been a student of history? Is this more of a recent endeavor for you?
No, I've always, I mean, going back to third grade, fourth grade, my mother would take me to local historic sites. I think I had a teacher who, looking back on it, she probably made her own clothes. You know, it's like she was probably a historical reenactor or a folk artist in some way. But I've always just had a natural inclination and sensitivity towards American history in particular. Even when I was a terrible student in math and English, I always did well in history.
Okay, so America's Founding Son, let's talk about him. Why John Quincy Adams? What was it about him that really captured your imagination?
You know, he's a failed one-term president, but who goes on to be our greatest public servant. After his presidency, he goes into Congress, and he serves for 18 years. And it's there that he becomes so extraordinary and becomes this anti-slavery activist. And I just thought that was a story that needed to be told.
So speaking of the anti-slavery activist, I mean, I think probably to most Americans, they know him as a president, but maybe a character in the Steven Spielberg version of the Amistad story played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. But what do you think people would be most surprised to learn about him?
Well, really, I think his diary is the biggest story of the whole book, because I make this point in the book. We are the same people. Like the people living today and the people living back then, we're the same people. Technology, Chris, we are hundreds of miles away, but it's like we're in the same room. So technology's changed, but the human heart and the human condition has not. And Adams kept this diary, 14,000 pages, from when he was a teenager to when he died at the age of 80. And if I haven't read every page, but as you go through it and you look at the turns that happened throughout his life, and you just see the pain and the suffering. And, you know, he was our greatest Nepo baby, right? He's John Adams' son. He's the Secretary of State. He becomes president. That's only half the story. His presidency was a failure. After he left office, a couple months later, his son committed suicide. And so this is when he goes into Congress and lives this other second act to his life. Really a third act.
So what was it in particular that surprised you the most as you were researching him?
Well, was that he changed. He was a very cold man. He was always against slavery, but he didn't think that the Congress and the federal government had any ability to interfere with it in the states where it existed. But while he was in Congress, he would receive petitions from his constituents. And some of these petitions were asking Congress to end slavery. And he would read these things, and he would anger the Southern congressmen when he read these things. And so they passed this rule called the gag rule, where you can't mention slavery on the floor of the House of Representatives. And that was the moment where Adams was like, okay, we're not talking about emancipation anymore. Now we're talking about freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is protected in the First Amendment. And that is what ticked him off and made him become this maverick in the House.
So obviously,
I found that very surprising.
I kind of clung to your maverick, because obviously I think when a lot of people hear that and they think of a politician, they obviously think of John McCain.
Yeah.
In terms of, if you had to make a comparison to a more present day politician, who would be the closest equivalent for somebody like John Quincy Adams?
I'll make this really simple. Imagine John McCain, 3 a.m., thumbs down to kill Obamacare, but now pretend that he's a former president doing that. Liz Cheney, going against her party in the wake of January 6th. And now pretend like she was a president, and now she's in the House doing that. That's kind of the comparisons that I can see. The gravity of what Adams did would be there no matter who did it. But the fact that it was a former United States president who, look, we look at Congress as being a stepping stone to the presidency. But Adams was in the presidency, and then he went to Congress, and he stays there for almost 20 years because he believed that it was public service was the goal. The goal was being a preserver of the Union that his parents had sacrificed so much to establish.
So looking at, that sort of modern equivalent, based on what you know about John Quincy Adams, based about what you researched about him, what do you think he would think of modern politics? What would he think of this Make America Great Again, America First approach to foreign policy, to domestic policy? What would he think of the Republican Party today? What would he think of the Democratic Party today?
He wouldn't be surprised by any of it. He probably would have seen it coming 20 years ago, and he would have written about it in his journal. And he would be disgusted with both parties. But he would be calling out the egotistical behavior of politicians, the corruption of the politicians. He'd be sick to his stomach with it, but he would not be silent.
Bob, let's talk a little bit about how this book came about in the first place. So let's rewind just a little bit, because I saw an interview with you where you said this kind of came together in the back of a van on tour.
Yeah. Well, at this point in the bus, but like all the years of learning about American history, it started in a van in 2004, 2005, reading long history books. But then, as our career progressed, we eventually get into a bus. And before I did a book about John Quincy Adams, I did a podcast series about him. And I wrote the podcast series. I worked with a partner on that. And then I wrote this book in a bus. And it's kind of really conducive to doing a project like this, because you're up at 7 a.m., no matter what time. Like, I'm 55 years old. Like, no matter what time I go to bed, I'm up at 7 a.m. And I don't have to be anywhere to sound check until 2 p.m. So that's like a whole work day to get, 8 hours to get work done. So being on the road and being a touring musician, if you use your time wisely, it's kind of the perfect environment to write a book.
Well, then I'm shocked that more artists haven't, because they may have that free time. But I have the feeling that some of them tend to sleep in a little more than you might.
I can't. I wish I could. If anybody has any,
I'm right there
secrets.
with you, except I have a 9-week-old
yeah.
at home. So, my schedule is 2 to 10 p.m., but,
Yeah.
I tend to stay up much, much later, and try as I might, I can't sleep in too late anymore. What do you hope audiences take away from this book?
Well, I pitched it as a beach read. So when I went to publishers, I said, hey, I want to write this history beach read. So I want people to, I think a person can read this in a week, no matter where they are. And I wanted to get them started. I want to here we are, 250th anniversary of the nation. I want to whet your appetite on American history. So I want you to read this book, be entertained, think a little bit, and then I want you to go on to the next book, the next history book that you choose to read.
Do you have, musicians wading into politics, any sort of celebrity, any sort of entertainer wading into politics, it can be a very risky move. Did you have any sort of hesitation about that?
Well, my attitude, first of all, I have 2 history podcasts, and so if people want to know my views have been expressed publicly for the past 10 years. With this book, I don't look at it like a right-left thing. I look at it telling a piece of American history that some on the left can be offended by and some on the right can be offended by. But it is part of our story, our collective story, no matter what party you vote for. And then finally, should musicians shut up and play, right? People love to say that to musicians. Just shut up and play. I don't care about your politics. And so for me, my daughter's had cancer 3 times. She's had 3 brain tumors. And we saw this past year just the gutting of the war on cancer. Federal spending on cancer research has been decimated. So I feel like I can talk about that. I feel like I stand on firm ground if I'm making a political argument about that issue, because I know that issue, and I know people are being hurt by it, and I know researchers who are not going to be able to deliver the next generation of cancer medications because of it, and the next generation of researchers who won't be able to work because those entry-level jobs just won't be there. So I think if a musician has firm ground to stand on, it's okay. I'll say this last. I interviewed Jackson Browne several years ago, and in the 80s, he started to write a lot of political music, and his fans were like, oh no, come back, Jackson. Like, what's happening to you? And he said that Steve Van Zandt, who plays with Springsteen, he was in Silvio Dante and The Sopranos, he said Steve Van Zandt said, people love it, I'm paraphrasing, people love an artist when they sing from the heart. What is personal for them? What is more personal for a person than their politics? And so I think if people like a person's love song, they should accept and give them a little grace when they have something to say about a political issue, because it's probably coming from a sincere place.
Well said. Do you think there's an overlap between music and history? I know you kind of teased we'll have to wait and see what's in store, but can we expect a song about John Quincy Adams on the next Avett Brothers album?
Well, I can guarantee you, and you can make your Kalshi bets now, no, there will not be a John Quincy Adams song ever on a Avett Brothers album. But I actually did find a John Quincy Adams campaign song from 1824, which people can find on the internet. I didn't record it, but it's out there. So anyway, that's all I'll say on that.
Okay, fair enough. Do Scott and Seth look at you like you're a fascinating human being?
Yeah, they're really good to me. They are very supportive, and we have a very loving relationship. And yes, they're very proud, probably proud of me.
So you mentioned your daughter, obviously, and I know this book is dedicated to your family. How is she doing?
Mm-hmm. She's doing okay. I mean, she has seizures every day. That's the battle that we face, and I'm sure many of your viewers either have epilepsy or they have a family member, so they can relate to this. But we're constantly trying new medications and then getting off of the new medications and then trying another medication. And so it's a constant battle, but it is a labor of love. It's what we care for our people. That's what we do.
So you're going out on the road with this book now. How does a book tour differ from an Avett Brothers tour?
Well, I am just starting it, so I don't know what to expect. I am on the eve of the book tour, and I am very excited, but the schedule is more aggressive than what we do these days as a band. We don't do more than 3 shows in a row because the guys' voices, they need rest. And I'm doing 5 book events back to back with press every day, and then a couple days of more press, and then I'm flying out to the West Coast, doing 2 book events out there, and then meeting up with the band and playing a gig outside of Los Angeles. So that's the next 2 weeks. So check in with me after that, and if I'm still standing, we can talk about the differences. But I feel like I'm keeping more of a politician's schedule with this book tour than a band schedule.
That makes sense. One of those stops on the tour, obviously, right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. So any plans while you're here? Any particular historical things you want to see while you're here? Any John Quincy Adams ties here in the nation's capital that you'd be interested in seeing?
A gentleman offered me a tour of the Congressional Cemetery, which is where, so Adams dies on the floor of Congress at the age of 80. He has a stroke while he's on the floor of Congress.
I'm laughing because I was going to say spoiler alert, but it's history. So.
Spoiler alert, yeah, it's history. But, and he has the greatest last words ever. This is the end of earth, I am composed. But he was interred briefly in the Congressional Cemetery before his body was put on the train and he went home to Quincy, Massachusetts. So I think I'd like to see that. And I've been near St. John's Church so many times. I'd like to go inside. I'd like to take a tour of that.
Very cool. So one of the things that I saw on your Instagram page was you talking about the advice you got from Grateful Dead's Bob Weir, and about how touring is not about passing through, but taking the temperature of America. What is the temperature of America, and how has it kind of changed over the years as you've been touring?
I see a lot of fear out there. I see people, we haven't started our tour this year, but me being out, talking to a lot of people for the book and getting out in town. I'm in New York City right now, and you just see people all over, and be it people wearing shirts that are protesting, just people are expressing their protest for what's going on now. Some are doing it with tattoos, I notice. Some are doing it with the clothes they wear. I hear people talk about the economy, just today, getting some coffee on the street and hearing people talk about what they couldn't afford. I hear people that are just kind of a little panicked with just what's going on in the country and where we are. And I think not knowing what comes next is really creates a lot of anxiety for people.
Bob, congratulations on the book. Can't wait to hear more from you in the near future, whether it's from the band or the podcast or the history books. Thanks for spending some time with us here in Washington, D.C.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
All right, and just a reminder, you can get Bob's book anywhere books are sold. It's out right now, and he will be at DC's Politics and Prose talking all about it on Sunday, March 15th. With Robert Costa. That's at 5 p.m. We do want to get to a little bit of breaking news right now. Take you out live to Sterling, Virginia. That's where Fox 5 Shamari Stone is live tonight. This is the last known address of the suspect in the Old Dominion University shooting. That suspect ties to Northern Virginia, identified as Mohammed Jalla of Sterling. As we've been watching this video, we have seen members of the FBI, we have seen members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and we have seen police. Right now you see people leaving the home. But obviously this was a suspected terror attack at Old Dominion University that killed one person and injured 2 others. Fox 5 Shamari Stone live on the scene. He'll have an update coming up for you tonight on Fox 5 News at 10. Thanks for joining us here on the Primetime. We'll see you tomorrow.